So we told you about this new operating system. It's called BharOS. Bhar from Bharat and OS means operating system. It's an indigenous operating system that can be installed in mobile devices. It has been created by IIT as a part of the center's Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. The operating system provides access to apps that meet the security and privacy standards. The operating system aims to change how privacy and security is perceived. In other words, think of it as another version of iOS or Android. So just like that, there is another operating system which the government or not government but the IITs have worked on, and they've shared it with the government now. The operating system will give access to reliable apps from organization-specific private app store. However, this is going to remain a big challenge. The operating system also offers native under-the-air updates that are automatically downloaded and installed. Now, will this be a game changer or not is the big thing. It's the big question. BharOS comes in the backdrop of Google dominating the market because of Android. The Google, in fact, ecosystem was found guilty of abusing the OS market, creating an absolute domination, where each app company present on Google App Store had to pay a 30% fee for the fact that they are so popular. There have been several demands from for an Indian app store. BharOS will give access to reliable apps from private app stores as well. But how seamlessly is this going to work and blend in? And will there be acceptability for this made in India operating system is going to be the big question. Let me now introduce our guest. Dhruv Bhutani is the editor of Android Authority, and Ankush Sabharwal, founder and CEO of Rover, as a tech expert also is with us. Thank you very much to the two of you. Dhruv Bhutani, I would like to begin with you first. What's your view about this new operating system? Do we know too little to comment?
Well, it's very interesting, and the press release itself is quite disingenuous because this is a fork of Android. It's not an entirely new operating system. So Android itself, there is a component of it called AOSP, which is the Android open source project. The Android which you get on your phone, that has the Google Play services, and that's the proprietary part. But Google does provide Android without their own services as well. And this is basically built on top of it. So no, it is not an entirely indigenous operating system to start with.
So in effect, we do continue to use Android. It's something which has been built on an Android platform. Is that what you say?
Correct.
Okay.
And additionally, I mean, just going by the information that we have so far, there is talk about having this available to 100 crore Indians. Realistically, that's not going to happen, and it cannot happen unless there are tie-ups with OEMs and ODMs for fresh devices, because all of these devices come with their bootloaders locked down. Now, I'm grossly simplifying it, but that is a security measure in place for, say, payment services and many other services for the security of the phone. So realistically, there is no way that a vast majority of Indians are ever going to be able to install this on their own device. With that said, since the entire focus seems to be on private app stores, I suppose there is a need and a market fit for the government where they can have their own vetted apps. But this is in no way and shape a competitor for Android for the mass market, not in its current shape.
Sabharwal, before I come to you, let me first quickly play out this video call which IIT Madras professor and the union minister had in order to claim that this is, the BharOS is here. Not completely writing it off, it's something new. How different or a game changer is it will be a subject matter of discussion. But let's listen into that moment when the government was made aware of this operating system.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, Satyanarayan ji.
We are waiting for your visit, sir, to IIT Tirupati.
चलो आपने इस मौके का उपयोग कर लिया.
दो विषय, sir. One thing is very clear. the system seems to be working very nicely, and this is a great initiative from a security point of view that our team. I'm also from IIT Madras basically, so I'm very proud of what my institute is doing in these areas. My friend Taapsee and our colleagues there.
This is Ashwini Vaishnav. Now we have to work on the further development, especially the app ecosystem and the chipset that also has to become the Atmanirbhar chipset.
Exactly. Okay. Mr. Sabharwal, your views about this operating system, because Mr. Bhutani says that there is nothing that you have built on an Android platform. So this is in a way just an improvisation.
Yeah. So though I would agree with Dhruv, but if you see, everything is built on something, right? So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, if you see, Android is also built on Linux. Though I watched the launch video where the founder, he said it's on Linux, but I also learned, as Dhruv is right, so that is on Android open source project. I think I came to know it's around, I don't have official information, but it's on Android 12. But that's fine. That's fine because it's open source, right? So they can take the open source and they can build, change, add, whatever they want to do. But I think important stuff, what they claim, if that's true, it will definitely help us, right? As organizations, and later I think we'll see as individuals or not. But as they're saying, mainly about security and privacy. So it's required. I think what I liked about them is it's private app store service. So I think the focus is more organizations using it, right? So that organizations can decide which app to permit, which not to, and onus is still on the organizations. So, right, if you see the launch video, I think.
But Mr. Sabharwal, help me understand from a layman term. If say, for instance, if this BharOS rolls out and I get to have the requisite hardware, I don't know whether the same Android phones can run BharOS or not, or Apple phones can run, or you have to buy brand new hardware or a brand new phone to support this, number one. And number two, you see the big reason why Windows operating system crashed and BlackBerry crashed and burned is because they did not have the requisite app support, right? So what is the point of a smartphone if you don't have the app backing? So what exactly is this PASS that you're talking about?
Absolutely, right. So I think when we're talking about, if you see the BlackBerry, right, who use BlackBerry more? The organizations use, right? So organizations use the BlackBerry. So you think if their target is to giving to the government or the organizations, so I think though they probably do not care about having more apps. I think that problem would come when they launch to the consumers. But again, coming to your first questions, whether this is available across mobile sets, probably not, right? Every OEM comes with the tuned version of customized version of operating system. I think that's the case even here, right? I think they have tested on Google Pixel, but I'm sure it's not yet portable across devices, right? I think we have to root it, flash it. I think it's not available to all the devices currently. But again, I think the focus is not consumers. I think they will have to tie up, I think for a big success, maybe the government has to do something further, maybe to get subsidy.
Mr. Bhutani, my final question, you see repeatedly the word safety and security has been used by the government also, by the people who are the minds behind BharOS. The minister also says you add an A after S, it will become Bharosa. But for this to be able to reach that Bharosa level among the people, don't you think a talk around security is a good conversation, especially given the day and age in which we live, where this device essentially tracks everything? It knows more about me than perhaps I know about myself.
So at the base level, I'd say the security aspect is that it essentially does not have any Google elements on board. So that alone takes away an element of tracking, be it for something as basic as ads. but yeah, it takes away that. It's also important to note that this is not the first operating system. There are many such offshoots of Android which are focused on security and getting rid of, the Google reliance. So if there is something particularly unique over here, that's really not been told, because all the features that they've talked about are essentially a part of Android. And this is essentially just a de-Googled version of Android, which is what you get as
De-Googled.
iOS-P. Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to wait and watch and wait for more information, because really nothing much.
Any
else
examples
has
that you
been
can give of
explained
other
on the
people who have
security
tried open source and new operating systems built on a similar platform?
Right.
I mean, is this part of a global experiment?
Well, I mean, okay, let's put it like this. The entire Android community and the user base has always been about customizing Android. And, some of them are focusing on taking away the Google aspect of it. Some of them are focused on enhancing performance. And there have been commercial ventures. For example, there's one company called Graphene OS, which again licenses
But
it
my
to
question
governments
is,
as
how
well.
do you get customized apps for this? The same thing that I give.
So this
like
will run-
iOS has its
Right.
own apps, Android has its own
Right.
apps. What about a phone like this?
So this will run a majority of Android apps. Any Android
okay.
app that has a reliance on Google services. Now that basically means any payment app will likely not work. Any app which requires access to the Play Store and services will also not work.
Interesting.
But yes, there are alternate app stores already available on Android which work on any Android phone.
So open
So I
source
can see
applications. On open
doesn't have
source.
to be open source. Doesn't have to be open source. I can see alternate marketplaces. For example, a very popular one is Aptoid, and it provides an alternative to the Google Play Store.
Interesting.
So app stores like that can absolutely survive and be a part of this operating system. But like I said earlier, this prima facie, this is more or less just about de-Googling the interface, and I don't really see much else
Okay.
from a security point of view.
Okay.
Based on the
Greeting it with skepticism. That is what Mr. Bhutani is doing. But thank you very much for joining us. This is an interesting space to watch out. Will we have a new operating system? This is not necessarily a Sarkari operating system because it's been developed and it's been shown to the government. But thank you very much, Mr. Sabharwal and Mr. Bhutani, for joining us.